Was there a month that really stood out to you? Like, holy cow, we just moved 20 cars like, that weren't sold as sold. Or do you have any numbers around it? Because I'm kind of curious.
Well, yeah, I mean, there were months, it might be 15 cars.
And how many cars in a month would actually have been sold?
35, 40.
Okay, so that puts it into perspective, right? Like, this is definitely a big issue, one that probably doesn't get talked about enough because if you're BMW, you don't want people talking about it. All right, Dad, we got a fun one in store today.
Well, cool. They're all fun as far as I'm concerned. And you know what makes life even more fun? When you find the best car price. And you know where the best place is to find the best car price? At findthebestcarprice.com/insider, where Jeff and his team scour the internet, work with all the manufacturers to find out what all the consumer incentives are, and they aggregate all that information in one place. Make, model, doesn't matter. You can get the information at findthebestcarprice.com, findthebestcarprice.com/insider.
Thank you for that, Pops. All right, let's jump into today's topic. I'm going to read the headline. I'll put it up on the screen as well. BMW fined $18 million for inflating monthly U.S. sales figures. And then the subheading is, while denying it was intentional. I am so excited to talk about this topic because for years you have told me about this. And I'm just ecstatic for you to kind of open up, preface all this with, we know nothing. No, don't take my dad to court as a defendant. All right, we know nothing. Absolutely,
I'm not. I think I would be a witness for the prosecution.
This is for entertainment purposes only. Okay. Anyway, open up, Dad. Of course they all their sales, not all their sales. A lot of their sales are fake.
Where to begin? Okay. As you know, I've been in the automobile business for 43 years. I don't want to suggest to you that I've seen this happen, I don't know, for, say, the last 43 years. But it's pretty, I think it started with the sale of the first Model T. Okay? Everybody always wants to say that they sold more than they did. Every manufacturer wants to say they sold more than they did. BMW and Mercedes-Benz are in stiff competition every year to say they were the number one luxury selling brand in America. And so they, along with other manufacturers, encouraged their dealers to report vehicles as sold that, well, aren't sold. Now, how do they do that? Well, when I was at the Mini dealership, and Mini's a division of BMW, and they would do this on the BMW side of things as well. Every month we would have sales objectives, and we would have to hit the objectives to earn extra money from Mini or BMW. And one of the ways that would allow us to get to our objective was they would encourage us to place cars into, well, demo service. And at that time, there were two different types of demos. One, you could put it in demo service and the warranty clock started ticking that day. And another one was a different type of demo service. And the warranty clock actually, didn't start ticking until you sold it to a real retail customer.
And Dad, when you say demo service, you're talking about service loaners or cars. Can you give a bit of an example? Okay, so give an example. Because if I don't know, our audience probably doesn't know.
Okay, so we would just designate the cars as being demos so that they would no longer show up as being part of our new car inventory in BMW or Mini's DCS system. Okay? They were essentially, as far as BMW and Mini was concerned, they were sold.
They're no longer listed as new car inventory.
New cars. Yes, and they weren't necessarily sold to the ultimate purchaser, but they were no longer considered part of the new car inventory. Now, for having done that, that would bring us closer to hitting our objective. Okay, and then the other thing that they would encourage us to do is, you might want to take some of your cars out of your service loaner fleet and move some other cars into your service loaner fleet and and take some new cars out of inventory and move them in the service loaner fleet. And instead of getting $1,000 per car for putting them in the service loaner fleet, if you do it right now, we'll subsidize it up to $2,000 per car. So they would pay us to do that. And which is one of the reasons why BMW and Mini dealerships have so many service loaners and so many retired service loaners, because every month they're struggling to hit these artificial objectives that the manufacturer set. So you're constantly moving cars into service loaner fleet.
Is it fair to say, Dad, that the statistics that these companies like BMW and Mercedes, et cetera, the OEM quarterly, sales numbers aren't actually number of sold units? It's number of units that had at one point in time been listed as new inventory but no longer are?
Yes, that would be fair to say. Because as far as they were concerned, if it was no longer part of your on-hand new car inventory, then it had to be a sold unit, even if it wasn't. And getting back to some of those cars that we designated as demos, I mean, I remember at the Mini store, literally, we had some cars that had been designated as demos that sat around for a year and a half, okay?
And they were sold.
Oh, absolutely. So when we would literally sell them to the end user, we would just have to do a end user update, a customer update. And on some of those cars, depending on what type of demo it was listed at, the actual warranty didn't start until the ultimate end user bought it. And the other type of demos that had started 18 months earlier, we had to have the customer sign a form stating that they understood that they only had 18 more months of warranty coverage left, or 50,000 miles, whichever came first, which in this case was going to be the 18 months. And the way you would make it worthwhile to the customers, well, you'd save money for having purchased that style of demo. But before I left, they had changed it to where it was just going to be one type of demo, and that the warranty wouldn't start till it was ultimately sold to the end user and the customer information was updated, because it was just unfair to people. But they would pay us quite a bit of money to do this. I can't tell you how many days on the last day of the month, the last hours of the last day of the month, I'm sitting there updating RDR cards, retail delivery reports, to show that, well, we put this car into demo service, we put this car into service loaner fleet, and it was every damn month. But that's how you hit your objectives. I remember Fiat dealers sued Fiat because of the number of cars that they had to report as sold that weren't really sold, because it was the only way they could become profitable. Dealerships have been doing this forever, and I remember once just looking at my Mini rep and saying, well, what would be wrong if we just, I don't know, put in a retail delivery report when we actually sold the car to the customer, not when we said, okay, let's make it a demo or let's make it a service loaner. Why can't you just report what you sell as opposed to what objective you're trying to hit, so that ultimately BMW can claim we're the #1 selling luxury brand in America when you're not?
So let's think about it, though, because obviously there's a reason to say you're the #1 luxury brand in America. That's worth something. That's worth $100 million, $1 billion. Right. I don't know how. Simply from, if they're publicly traded companies, Dad, the stock will pop. You'll hit. Think about it from the corporate side. There's probably a whole suite of people that have objectives and compensation tied to the stock crossing a certain threshold or having a certain number of inventory, moved. And so I see it starting all the way there, and then of course it perpetuates, throughout all the dealer groups that they have to do this. But it to me, it speaks to how broken the system is. Like it's fake. It's all fake. The numbers are fake.
Okay.
The valuations are fake. It's all BS.
Okay, so I think what you just described to me, and I'm not, I'm a pretty simple guy, as you know, but that sounds a hell of a lot like stock fraud.
I don't know if it's stock fraud, but I think it's just fraud. No, I think it's just fraud. I think that's what I mean. It's essentially gaming the system so that things can look better than they actually are. And I think that goes and that exists outside of just the auto industry. The auto industry just happens to be the second largest one in the United States, so it's a pretty big one. But for you to know, I mean, for you to hear this headline and just be like, yeah, of course. I mean, if you're a sales manager at a BMW, yeah, of course. Like every single month we update our numbers, and it's so interesting for you to share, because I obviously didn't understand what you meant when you said demo versus service auto, but it sounds like, again, it's just updating, in a database essentially, the DCS. What the designation is for the vehicle. Okay, now it's sold, and it's still sitting there on your lot. Like,
because it went from your new car inventory on their system to your used car inventory on their system, and that was why we could sell so many used cars that were 18 months old or so that had 33 miles on them. How used are they? Yeah.
Question for you. What was if you can ballpark, do you remember whether it was at Mini or Acura or Audi or all the different manufacturers you worked for? Was there a month that really stood out to you like, holy cow, we just moved 20 cars that weren't sold as sold? Or do you have any numbers around it? Because I'm kind of curious.
I mean, there were months, it might be 15 cars.
And how many cars in a month would actually have been sold?
35, 40.
Okay, so that puts it into perspective, right? Like, this is definitely a big issue, one that probably doesn't get talked about enough, because if you're BMW, you don't want people talking about it.
One of the great joys of working for the Penske organization, which is a publicly traded company, is we would absolutely refuse to participate in any of these type of situations, because we considered it fraud to our investors to report sales that didn't exist on an individualized store basis. So, but the manufacturer, they didn't give a shit. They just wanted to report numbers. And, they would invent ways for you to be able to say things were sold that weren't actually sold, so that they could count it as monthly sales for their objectives. And I'm sure their executives were getting paid on this stuff. And
of course,
it was just all nonsense. I mean, the best way to sell cars is they just lower the damn price of the cars, lower their margin from what they build it, what it costs them to build it, to what they sell it to the dealer for, so that they can lower the manufacturer's suggested retail price and bring it more in line with what people are willing to pay. And then let the chips fall where they may, and however many cars you sell is however many cars you sell.
Dad, something tells me we're never going to get invited to like a manufacturer, I don't know, party or golf event. I feel like we're going to get blackballed out of the industry, but you know what, damn it? This is the type of information that people need to hear. This is your auto advocate. This is honesty, transparency. It's just the reality of the situation. And so I'm glad that we get the chance to talk about it, and you're willing to share your past experiences. Maybe things have changed. They haven't, but maybe. There's always hope.
Yeah. We're not your manufacturer advocate, I can tell you that right now. Okay?
Yeah, no.
We're just not. Yeah, we're the public's advocate, so that the public can know what the hell's really going on. And they're entitled to know.
I agree. Do you want to remind folks about how they can extend their browser, and then we'll wrap this video up?
Go to yourautoadvocate.com/browser extension, or browser hyphen extension, or I don't know. Talk to Zach. He'll tell you.
If you like this video, be sure to let us know down below. We appreciate you watching, sharing, all that fun stuff. We're here to, speak the truth is the truth, and that's what we're here to do.
Truth to power, baby. Truth to power.
I love it. Thanks for your time, Dad.
My pleasure, honey. Talk to you later.
Yes, sir. Love you.
Yep. Love you too. Bye-bye.